Hello and welcome to the Human Story Behind the Business and Brand podcast. I'm the host, Jeanette Walton, a career brand consultant and Humans Matter champion, committed to helping others to deep dive into their many human facets that make them unique, fabulous beings. I'm also a strong advocate of storytelling to enrich our human connections. This podcast partnership with Women Making It Work aligns with, but slightly deviates from The Human Behind the Career Brand podcast series. The human story behind the business and brand delves into those poignant moments, experiences, and life lessons that shape these high-performing professional women into who they are today. It discusses their feats, their fates, their flaws, their fears, and all the other fabulous human elements that have driven them to perform so well in both their personal and their professional lives, as has been encapsulated in the Women Making It Work celebratory anthology entitled Beyond the Business, Stories of Women Who Dared. So my next guests for this podcast series are Mary Benton, Emma Zoobi, and Amanda Wright, three of the authors and storytellers in Women Making It Work's Beyond the Business anthology, representing those women who saw opportunities, who took chances, put in the extra mileage, and/or confronted fears and doubts to enable them to grow both personally and professionally. So my first guest is Mary, who is one of the original committee members and the former chair of Women Making It Work, who is also the founder and owner of financial advisory Plan for Wealth. Mary stepped out of the safe, reliable corporate world to start up her own financial planning business shortly before she became involved in Women Making It Work, that was also at its embryonic stage. She knows what it's like to learn as you go, while operating with minimal business capital or funding, and to keep navigating feelings of dread and trepidation. Mary also understands the benefits of continuing to experiment and to be willing to be imperfect, as long as you keep trying. She played a pivotal role in Women Making It Work, becoming the highly regarded local voice and business women's sisterhood that it is today, 20 years later, while also continuing to build and expand her own business, Plan for Wealth. My second guest is mortgage and lending specialist Emma, who started up Loan Market in 2023, which follows on from her former Elevate Lending Solutions business. Emma has been involved in both property and business ownership for many years after an earlier career in the corporate world, and is particularly passionate about empowering women and young people via deeper financial literacy. She believes that financial security is a freedom that can change people's lives for the better, and she has first-hand experience in feeling rejected and possibly neglected by Australia's major financial institutions. Her earlier disheartening encounter with the bank lending system is pretty much what inspired Mary to become a lending specialist back in 2022. And my other guest is Amanda, founder and owner of the small business launching pad that she kicked off in 2016 after spending many years in safety and injury management advisory roles. Her adult learning business's main slogan is learning without boundaries. And it's the establishment and running of this training and mentoring provider that has enabled Amanda to continue to build on her own capabilities, including in the digital promotion and engagement space. While Amanda still believes that real connection is made in the warmth of a handshake and a face-to-face conversation, she has slowly but surely started to embrace the digital landscape for professional purposes, which includes a strong LinkedIn presence. So welcome, ladies. It's such a pleasure to have the three of you here all at once on the podcast.
Welcome, Jeanette. Thanks for that. And thanks for inviting us.
Thank you.
Pleasure. So the three of you have a common theme of overcoming fears, doubts, and setbacks to continue to grow and evolve as businesswomen. So Emma first, is there any method or practice you applied that turned your initial feelings of rejection into inspiration after the bank rejected your home loan application?
Yeah, there was. It wasn't instant, but eventually when it hit, it was quite powerful. At first, the rejection felt really personal, felt like I wasn't worthy. Anyway, I had to sit in it for a little bit. I had to sit in the disappointment. I had to sit in the neglect and that rejection for a bit. But then when I went past that, I started, getting curious as to the why. Why did the bank say no? What did I not understand? Because at that point, I had borrowed millions and millions of dollars and it was never an issue. But at that point, it was. So I felt that there was something amiss. So I broke down the problem, got some advice, worked with some other brokers just to bounce some scenarios around. And I guess at that point, I realized that no is often just a lack of strategy and not a lack of worth. when it comes to the people that you're talking to. So I've reframed that rejection into motivation and just found a solution. And I guess that's where I am today, literally because of that moment in time when they shut the doors in my face.
I don't think as humans we like rejection in general, do we? I don't think we
No,
take
especially
too
when
well
you're
with it.
kind of led astray, I guess. You know, people promise that everything's going to be fine. And then when it's not, like they just don't explain.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you took back your power through knowledge.
I did.
Yeah, love that. Love that.
Thank you.
Amanda, what
Yep.
has been your biggest achievement to date in terms of feeling more confident about having a digital presence?
I think it's people have that fear of rejection of putting a post in, but I think it's understanding who your audience is, what kind of information do I put out there, then, you know, SEO and titles and all of those things. So it's not just about putting an image and then learning how to use like platforms like Canva and all of those sorts of things as well. You know, I think it's just a massive learning curve. When you work for an organization, everything's there. You just plug it in. When you work for yourself, you have to figure it out and go, okay, well, now I need, you know, to be able to do A, B, C, D. How do I do that? And I think that's sometimes the hardest thing is working out, you know, how do I use some of these applications and these tools? Why do I need to use them? So, yeah, I think once you become comfortable with that, then I think it's a little bit easier, you know, that sort of the barriers sort of disappear as you sort of understand why you're using, you know, headline generators or title generators or, you know, rankings and those sorts of things. Yeah.
So again, it's that knowledge is power, really, isn't it? The digital
Yeah.
literacy. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And here you are on a podcast. So well done.
I know. It's super exciting.
So, Mary, did you find it beneficial to be building up your own financial planning business at the same time as women making it work?
Well,
It's quite
So
impressive
I'm-
you're doing both at the same time, by the way.
so I'm an accountant by trade, and then I specialised in financial planning. And I had this bright idea one day, I'll go and start my own business, as we all do. And then when I was working it out, lots of knowledge inside my head, right? But I thought, oh my God, I actually need to have customers, don't I? Otherwise,
It's
can't run a business.
There's a lot more to consider here.
Oh my God. And accountants, no offense to any accountants, but it's not our natural forte to get out there and win customers, right? It's just not how we're made. So I read something that said, rather than walk the streets and knock on doors one by one and hope that somebody takes pity on you, it's actually easier to network, this new phrase that I'd never heard of, and go and find somebody, one person who has already 1,000 clients. So in other words, other business people. And then when you talk to that one person, you're now talking to 1,000 clients who they know very well. And then by that leverage, you're able to grow your business. So I went out looking for, you know, who can I possibly network with? And at the time, council were just setting up the Women Making It Work group. And I just happened to be, I suppose, in the right place at the right time, or the wrong place at the wrong time, whichever way you want to look at it. And so it actually went hand in hand. I hadn't yet got the customers to keep me too busy to be able to devote time to the network. The network was going to be my avenue to give me the confidence to be able to grow my business. And so it wasn't that I got lots of clients from networking, but boy, oh boy, the stuff I learned through networking and support I had while I was growing it was fabulous. So it was really great to be doing both at the same time, Jeanette.
Yeah, they sound like they really complemented each other.
Yeah.
I know I think you all know Joe Fisher, who's part of Women Making It Work.
Oh,
So
yes.
we actually started a professional networking group earlier this year, and I have learnt so much. Like, I've been running my own business for almost 15 years, but I learnt so much in this last year from setting up a networking group.
Yeah, it's great, right? Really good.
Amanda, in your story, you highlight there is an industry recognised phobia for those who feel anxious about using social media. And I know I'm not going to get this right, but I'm going to try and pronounce it. It's known as bibliophobia.
That's it.
Is that right?
Yep. Yes.
Well done, me. Do you believe that inner concern about being judged online is what primarily fueled your digital anxiety? And if so, how did you navigate that?
I think it was because I only went on Facebook because I had to, right? I always had a LinkedIn profile, like I'd had that for years. I didn't really see that as a place, but I think, you know, Facebook, Instagram, all of those sorts of things, that was completely foreign to me. And it's like, why do I need to do this for? Again, it's a different type of platform to post. So what you would talk about on LinkedIn is not the same as what you do on TikTok or Instagram or
For
Facebook.
sure.
So for me, I was just like, well, I don't write fluff. No, I write policies and procedures to meet legislation. That's what I'd been doing for the last 18 years. So I didn't know how to connect to people like kind of do on those platforms. So I really struggled with that. Yeah, I absolutely think it's one of the biggest barriers because there's a lot of noise, and how do you cut through that noise?
Percent.
Yeah.
I felt a bit the same. Like I really stepped out in my own business probably 2 or 3 years ago, and I've had some mentoring, and it's also learning about, to some degree, not caring too much what people think about what you post. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I remain objective, obviously, but you're not going to please everyone all the time. Yeah, yeah. Mary, you share that the membership model at Women Making It Work was continually experimented with in the early days, with the primary objective of keeping costs down. So what do you see as the primary benefit of applying that trial and error approach when establishing any type of business or organisation?
It's funny, right? You make it sound like it was very planned. We'll go, you see these business coaches say this is how you should apply it, or some, physicists will say it. But the fact is, we didn't know what we were doing. We were flying by the seat of our pants. And we were saying, I had this just concept that we needed to keep it low cost because a lot of our members, especially in the early days, ran their businesses from home and they had kids. And so there was a lot of constraints already, and budgeting was one of them. So we said, well, if we do it, early in the morning for breakfast, which day of the week is it? Or is it better for them to do it at lunchtime after they've dropped the kids at school? Or is it better, in the evenings when they can leave the kids with the husband and they can come on their own? Or, which day of the week then would they do weekends? So there's a lot of different types of functions, different types of speakers, what's their appetite. And slowly over time, we started to refine it. We had people there. It was no problem. Wherever we went, we were just dragging people in, even by force sometimes, by the scruff of the neck. But we were getting people there. But it was just what works for people best, especially when they're business owners and they need to have an environment where they can talk freely. But at the same time, they've got a reason to justify why they aren't at home looking after the kids, because there's a lot of guilt that we carry as women, right? And if we made it too much of a social outing, then people would go, oh, that's just, well, especially the hubbies might say, that's just you taking time out with the girls. You need to be home, doing whatever. So you had to make it that it definitely gave them something back to their business, but at the same time, there was an environment that felt easy enough and open enough for them to be able to fess up and share their deepest fears as well. So it's a lot of experimenting to get that right. And I think the model that's ended up is just fabulous, and it's one that's been adopted consistently now because it works. Up early in the morning was just too hard for everybody.
Yeah,
Sort of
I've
like,
tried BNI a couple of times. I can't do it.
oh, it's horrible, right? You just can't do it. But also, if you wait till something's perfect, you're never going to launch it. So you've just got to. This does apply in business now, and it is right when business coaches say it. If you wait for it to be 100% perfect, you'll just keep refining and keep refining and keep refining.
So
You've
true.
just got to get out there and launch. And then you refine it. You see what works, you see what doesn't. And okay, one person might, and we had it along the way, a lot of critics, why do you always hold it on the third Wednesday? That's the day I always go to something else, Why aren't you holding it on the second Tuesday? So you always get those critics, but you start to learn to get a thicker skin about it and to say, yeah, that's just noise, but is a Tuesday better than a Wednesday generally? Or is, night times better than mornings generally? So you're sort of refining it and trying to learn it at the same time. So yeah, it's an approach that I think everybody should take in their businesses.
And keep pivoting. I
And
talked about that with someone else
keep
yesterday.
pivoting. Yeah.
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 Actually, that ties in with what we just talked about with respect to your digital content as well. You're never
Yeah.
going to have everyone happy with what you're doing, what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Emma, in 2011, fire destroyed the premises of your family business, which took 12 months to rebuild. Is there anything that stands out in terms of what you learnt from that experience with regards to managing business finances in more challenging times?
Yeah, that experience really reshaped the way I looked at a lot of things. When that fire destroyed the business, literally everything stopped overnight. Everything. the income, the operation, even things outside of the business stop. Like at that time, we had 5 units that were in planning phase. So we had just done all the drawings. Like that completely came to a grinding halt because obviously our business was our biggest income generator at that point in time. So I guess what really stood out was how critical cash flow and contingency planning were. I think, you always think but you don't realize what you don't know. And I think back then I look back and I'm like, I was a little bit probably naive but you live and learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess that taught us a lot about buffers. Like, even though we had enough money in the business, like there was no way we could have planned 12 months of money to cover everything. So, very quickly we learned that, having conversations with the right people, insurance, banks, suppliers was very key. Some people weren't really nice either. Some people actually didn't care, but we just had to deal with those conversations as they came about. I think the other thing that we learned is that resilience isn't just emotional, it's actually really financial. Having those backup plans and having the right advice in place and just knowing that things can actually go very wrong, and at least having a plan to guide you through. Yeah, that was a really big lesson.
Yeah, sort of like risk management, really, isn't it?
It is. And,
Yeah.
the biggest thing is you don't know what you don't know until you realize that you don't know it. And sometimes it's a little too late. We were quite fortunate, things worked out the way, but it took 12 months.
It's been a traumatic experience for those 12 months. Yeah.
It was really, really hard. And my husband, I think, took the brunt of it a lot because he was the director at the time. He dealt with a lot of the insurance, the police, the fire brigades. Like they investigate and they question multiple times. Yeah, it was a lot.
Because of fraud, yeah? Potential fraud.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was just awful. It's one of the most awful things that could happen. And then going back and, seeing what's left and rebuilding, it's really hard.
Well, I can't
But I
either.
guess it teaches me today to really plan for uncertainty. And I have those conversations with clients. You actually don't know what's going to happen. We all think it's, rainbows and picket fences, and we know it's not, but we don't expect the worst. But you really do have to plan for the worst, or at least be prepared to pivot.
Yes, love
Yeah.
that word.
Me too.
Yeah, I think, until something directly impacts you, I think we don't realize that we're also vulnerable. Yeah?
Yeah.
Life can
Yeah,
change
it was
overnight.
tough.
So this next question is for all of you. So if anyone wants to jump in, feel free. So what do you think has become your core personal mission and or professional superpower based on what you've achieved to date as business owners?
I'll have a go at that. It's spreading confidence. And I think it's when you've jumped in at the deep end and tried things and survived, even if at the time it felt really scary and horrible, you start to realize that, you're not as fragile as you thought you were. And so it ends up making you more confident, and spreading that confidence to other people is just something I do every single day in my business. But I just love it when I'm meeting. Could be I'm at a new function, I meet strangers for the first time, and just giving them the confidence to be able to have conversation without awkward silences. And that spreading confidence to me is almost a superpower. I just love it.
Amanda or Emma, anything you want to add?
I think on the back of Mary's answer, yeah, I guess helping people to feel confident and empowered around money, especially when they're feeling stuck and overwhelmed, because when it comes to financial situations, sometimes it's very overwhelming, but we've really got to see beyond the numbers. It's about the people themselves, their timing, their strategy, their future. So it's about looking at, the whole picture, not just necessarily the numbers.
Human to human, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Human first. What about you, Amanda? Anything you want to add?
I'm going to say it's really about that resilience and confidence building. Like I work with a lot of job seekers, and, it's explaining that their soft skills or their transferable skills are really the things that they should be showcasing.
Yep.
And it's just getting them to remap their resume, that it's not about the position that they had, it's about the things that they did in that position and what can we use those skills for in other positions. So it's about, sort of reinventing yourself without any like major cosmetic type stuff, but it's really just tweaking where, It's that 2-degree shift, really, isn't it, in mentality that, oh, I've got this, I can do this. You know what? Actually,
Yeah.
I have 85% of those skills. You don't need every skill on when they list all the skills that they want you to have in a job listing. As long as you can do 90% of it, some of it's always going to be on the job learning, whether you run your
Yes.
own business or you work for somebody else. You learn as you go along.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really, all three of you, really, it's about empowering people, isn't it, through knowledge and awareness of what they can do. Love that. Mary, it's women making it work that gave you the permission to be imperfect and to try things and fail, including in your own financial planning business. So, is there a poignant moment where that fellow businesswomen's support helped you to overcome a sense of fear or failure?
I don't think there's just one moment, Jeanette. I think there's many. I felt like I was always surrounded by friends. And wherever I went, like I could walk into a strange room, and if there was a single woman in the room, one other woman in the room, not a single necessarily, I immediately felt I could walk up to that person and suddenly I had the sisterhood around me, and I still have that really strong feeling of sisterhood. And so that meant that whether they already were a member or they weren't a member, it did not matter. We were there together. And so it just gave me over and over and over again that feeling of support. And there were many times, I couldn't possibly even name one of them, where I knew if I needed to pick the phone up, there was a number of women at the end of the phone, usually more than 5, that I could call to help me out in the situation. Whether it
Nice.
was, I didn't understand, I didn't know, I felt scared. Hey, have you ever done this? There was just people you could call. That support was invaluable. So
Yeah.
there are many, many situations like that.
And that having people who understand how you're feeling because,
Yeah,
they're small
yeah.
business
And they
owners
know
too.
you because you've been able to fess up to them all the things that you're worried about.
Yeah.
How you're dealing with the staff, how you're dealing with a client, how you're dealing with a shitty, I don't know, licensee or a hard to deal with supplier or whatever. You've had these conversations, and then when it could just be you're whinging about the kids, and you've got somebody that you can just pick the phone up and talk to. That's very powerful when you feel otherwise like you're on your own when you go out into business as a woman somehow. I felt very much alone. I didn't get the
Yes.
support from home that I wanted, and my Women Make It Work was my support network. So it was just brilliant to have those girls there all the time.
Well done on creating such a beautiful sisterhood. Because
Yeah.
that's certainly coming through in the conversations I'm having with others, who are part of Women Making It Work. Emma, as a lending specialist, you pride yourself on meeting each client exactly where they are in line with their own unique story, like you touched on before. Are there any specific business values or procedures you apply to ensure that each of them feels seen, understood, and supported?
Yeah, for me, lending, I guess, has never been about just the numbers. Obviously, given the reason why I got into this side of it, it's because I wasn't seen and I wasn't heard. So that's my first priority, always to make sure I meet them exactly where they are and listen. Empathy is probably one of the biggest core values before I even talk about numbers and lenders and borrowing capacity. I actually take the time to listen and understand their goals, what their concerns are, what they really want, what the loan or what it actually means for them. For me, when I was in that situation, when the bank said no, it wasn't just buying another house. I needed to get out of where I was because it was such a dark place for me and it was not good for my general well-being. It was depleting me of everything. So I think really listening to the why is so. I guess with that as well, I'm focused on the education and the transparency. I explain the options, explain everything, making sure that everyone understands what they're getting themselves into, because it's huge, taking a loan out for whether it's a house or investment. So yeah, I guess empathy and education and transparency are one of the 3 of the things that I definitely focus on.
And the power of the lived experience.
Yeah, but I must say, I don't really tell my story in
Now, they probably
client
don't want to
meetings.
hear that you were rejected by the bank when you're trying to get them a loan, do they?
No, but if it does come about, I will say to them, yeah, it happens, but it's
Yes.
all about strategy and the person that you're dealing with and making sure that they're actually paying attention and listening to you, which is what I never had. But because I had it so good, I guess previously, I trusted the guy, the business banker. I trusted them. We had millions of dollars of loans through the bank at that time with that particular lender. Like, why wouldn't they give me a loan? Yeah, but I don't go into details about me. But they can read the book. They can find out some background.
But I guess it influences. Well, it enables you to be more empathetic, doesn't it? Having been there.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's very grounding. We have a huge portfolio, and I think I could have taken a very different attitude. But as much as I would not have liked to have been rejected by the bank, I think it's a little bit humbling as well.
Humbled every now and then either, is it?
Yeah.
Amanda, you highlight how you feel more comfortable sharing others online as opposed to your own. And client validations are no doubt powerful online. Is there any way that you still ensure prospective customers feel like they know you through your digital assets?
Yes, because I generally do most of my connections that I've met, whether it's through the council or women making the work, it's been through face-to-face conversations. I remember back in Women Making It Work when I ran my very first workshop, pre-COVID. If I look back on that now, I'd probably cringe going, oh my gosh. But it gave you that space, that safe space to build your skills, build your confidence, build those networks. And sometimes I think it's easier to have a conversation face to face than it is, through a message, stream on a LinkedIn post or something. Still think that can make it much easier, and it's about showing up, isn't it really? Oh yeah. And yeah, I sort of think that, that there's certainly a place for social media. There's no doubt about it. But I also think that people still need to, we're still humans, and on the other side of it, we still have emotions. We still have bad days. We still, don't always get things right, and that's okay. I think people can be very judging on social media very quickly because they're hiding
True.
behind a screen.
Yes, true. And I think, statistics are coming out that humans are really craving human connection. And it's face-to-face, isn't it, really, where you build that deeper connection. Yeah. Just a couple of questions to wrap this up. What would your reflection be on how rewarding it's been to set up and run your own business?
I'm going to jump in and say it's definitely, I think, where we've all started our business to where we end up. It's a journey. And sometimes you can go around some really surprising corners and find out things about yourself and strengths about yourself that you kind of never really knew, because you have to step out of your personal zone into a business zone, and do things that you probably wouldn't normally do on a personal level.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Well, yeah. If I'd known what I knew before I started my business, I'm sometimes wondering whether I would have started it. It definitely
Yeah, I can relate to that sometimes.
definitely hasn't been easy. And I actually didn't realize that I was entering into a extremely male-dominated industry, which was financial planning, and that it was not only hard and lots of legal blocks and legislation, the passion that I've got for helping clients, working one-on-one, fantastic. But there were a lot of good decisions being made in ivory towers by boards that I had no control over, which you all saw during the Royal Commission. And that's just awful to see how those people make decisions that affect my business. So it's been tough along the way, but would I do it again? I might do it differently. I would take the fight back to them early on, not just think that they knew what they were talking about. But I wouldn't change what I do, because not just the flexibility it gives running your own business, but you're doing what you love. And when you do what you love, you actually never work a day in your life. So yeah,
Emma?
Yeah, a little bit like what Mary said. It's hard. Running your own business is hard and it's uncomfortable. I think if anyone says it's a walk in the park, they're not telling you the truth.
They must be getting money elsewhere.
Yeah, correct. Look, I think running your own business takes a lot of guts, a lot of courage, but you have to have an overwhelming sense of purpose to be able to see those days through. I look back and I think, I'm not on my deathbed, but I look back and I just think to myself,
Just make you go a bit deeper. I use that. I know it's very dramatic.
yeah, but all of those people that you showed up for in the years that you've been in business where it truly mattered, like that is the reason why we did or we do what we do. So it's very empowering. I think when you set up your own business, you break a lot of rules, you make a lot of rules, you don't sit there and wait for permission to do the things, you don't stay small. And I think business owners really don't give up. And I think they're the things that I look back on and I think, yeah, it has been rewarding. It's been hard, but it's definitely been rewarding.
Certainly makes you more creative and innovative, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. So my last question, we may have covered it to some degree with what you've all just said, but let's see if there's anything else you want to add. Is there any final message that you'd like to pass on to anyone who listens to this podcast in terms of being willing to grow and evolve as both a person and a professional?
On the back of my last response, don't wait until you feel you're ready, because you might never be. Growth happens in the doing. Like you've got to be doing the things to grow.
Yeah. It's that willingness to learn and to constantly learn. Technology changes, business practices changes, legislation changes. So it's that adaptability and that willingness to keep pivoting and moving to where you and your clients are.
Sometimes when you're doing something different, the people that love you, not just the people that hate you, but the people that love you are scared for you and they're scared of their world changing. And so they will try and find lots of reasons why what you're doing won't work. And they'll try and pull you down. Sometimes they do it with the best intentions, but they're not necessarily in your corner. And it's really important when you're running a business that you surround yourself with like-minded people who are going to be there for you and support you no matter what. And that's, I think, one of the biggest, if I can give any advice to anybody, it's find yourself a new tribe that can live alongside your existing tribe. But if you're going out in business, you've got to have a tribe that's going to be there with you for that journey. And then you'll be successful.
Such wise advice. I can think of a couple of times where friends have, really tried to talk me out of it. And it's probably based on their own fears.
It's their own fears.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing speaking with the three of you all together. This is the biggest podcast episode I've done. It's usually been up to 3, so 4 of us. Well done. Yeah, really appreciate you sharing so many insights about your own journeys, setting up your business and continuing to run your businesses. And thank you so much.
Oh, thanks,
Thank
Jeanette,
you.
for the opportunity as well.
Yeah.
See you guys.